So
So far, so good.
It's
I hope everyone is okay. Excited, as excited as I am for one more journey into FinTech,
inshallah.
inshallah. So let me confirm, how many attendees should be joining with us? Is it only us here?
Hussein and I are from the same company. We're both from
Expense and ZPay. Perfect. Yeah. Is there anyone missing from ZPay side?
ZPay all good to go.
Okay, good. We are good to go. Bismillah. Okay, guys. Today we're talking about FinTech and investment from a payment perspective as a payment service provider. Also, we're going to cover currency exchange business in Saudi Arabia. Let me, in the beginning, introduce myself. I'm Rami Hatata. I'm head of technology in Knowledge Pioneers law firm. Today, inshallah, I'll be happy to drive you through payment service provider as a fintech business in Saudi Arabia. Also, as usual, this is a disclaimer that this presentation per se is not deemed to be a legal consultation. However, inshallah, on a one-on-one basis, we're going to deliver in detail legal consultations for each participant. So let's go. At the outset, what is a payment service provider? Of course, from a legal perspective in Saudi Arabia. A payment service provider is actually a company that helped business owners or individuals is a company that a business owner accept a wide range of online payment online, such as or through online banking, credit cards, debit cards, e-wallets, or cash cards. Also, basically, they make sure that your transaction as a user or a customer make it from point A to point B safely and securely. And of course, within the regulatory system in Saudi Arabia under the supervision of SAMA. That's why in KSA, you can tell that a payment service provider is a company or a commercial entity that has or wishes to obtain a license as a PSP, and usually it is a joint stock company incorporated in KSA. Also, it is specialized in processing online payments as a service, as a commercial service, a paid service. As I mentioned, it's regulated and supervised within Saudi Arabia under SAMA, the Saudi Central Bank. Now, how many types of payment service providers do we have in KSA? Mainly, we have two major types. Either a payment institution, from now on we will refer thereto as a PI, and electronic money institution. And also we will call it from now on as an EMI, electronic money institution. Both of which has two levels or two types, two minor types, either micro or major. Micro PI, major PI, micro EMI, major EMI. Both types of payment service providers types has a major differences, either on the scale of PI or EMI. For instance, PI delivers a credit transfers service, also money remittance, direct debits, and payment card or similar physical or digital device service. However, EMI, they can issue payment instruments, they can issue electronic money, they can acquire payment transactions, money remittance, cash in or out, and payment initiation services and account information services. And of course, in addition to all of these services delivered by PI. So PI is quite shortened on services that can deliver. However, on the other hand, EMI is allowed to deliver all of PI's services in addition to some special or additional services. That's why from now on, you should know that e-wallets is an EMI specialty. PI is not allowed to deliver an e-wallet service. Okay, so now let's move to the requirements for a PSP license. Let's start with common licensing requirements for all applicants, for all PSP licenses, either a PI or an EMI. Requirement number one, you should of course complete an application form to be submitted or handed over to SAMA. You should attach such application with your annual financial statements, most preferably for 5 years. In some other excused situations, it might be shrinked or lowered to 3 years. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Rami, just a quick.
Please.
Can we ask you questions during the presentation, or would you like us to leave the questions till the end?
Please, you can ask me whenever you want.
Okay, great. I just had a question here on the annual financial statement. So,
please.
Our company Expense is incorporated in Saudi Arabia, but is owned by a holding company in Abu Dhabi. And both companies are less than 5 years old. The Abu Dhabi company is 3 years old, and the Saudi company is just turned 2. So in this case, when we're going to SAMA, do we give the financials at the holding level, or should we give them at our Saudi level?
By the way, are you going to enter Saudi Arabia as a standalone company or as a GCC company?
So the company that we have in Saudi Arabia right now is a limited liability company. It is 100% Saudi entity, but it is owned by our Abu Dhabi company. So we have our Sagia. So we did it just before Sagia turned into MISA. So the company has its own CR. It's not a branch. It's not an offshore. It is a fully 100% Saudi entity. But the owner on the sigil is our Abu Dhabi company.
On the sigil, it is the Abu Dhabi company.
Yes, that owns.
So you should submit your Abu Dhabi's annual financial statements.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Since it's owned by a GCC/foreign company.
And we have the Sagia license for the company as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, you will need to submit these as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. So these are the first 2 common licensing requirements. Now let's move to requirement number 3, which is a risk management policy. And of course, on a later stage, we will address the risk management matter in further details. Number 4, of course, you need to submit also a fit and proper form for each of the founding members or the founding partners to SAMA. Number 5, you need to submit a business plan. And of course, it needs to be a thorough business plan that addresses the following: a summary of the applicants, the company strategy and value proposition, draft contracts between all the parties involved in the provision of the payment services. For instance, the PSP applicant with a third-party service provider, the company and users, user to user, all sorts of contracts that involved within the operation of the business. Number three, of course, a description of the operating model or business flow or workflow chart for each payment service to be provided. Also, key risks affecting the applicant and the market it operates in. Of course, here we're talking about KSA. A financial plan, including an income statement and balance sheet forecast, including projections demonstrating that it will meet the relevant reserve capital requirements. As I mentioned earlier, most preferably 5 years in case of a major PSP, or 3-year plan in case of a micro PSP. Number 6, by the way, as for the business plan, here, this point, of course, we're talking about the future plan, a future business plan. So you need to submit a 5-year plan into the future, not in the past. Number 6, a detailed organizational chart or organizational hierarchy of the company. Risk management, oh, this is duplicate, sorry. Shareholders structure, applicants, consumer protection measures, and of course, we will address this in further detail on a later stage. Last but not least, with regard to IT, also, this is highly important. When it comes to your IT infrastructure, you should submit a complete, detailed file or plan on addressing your or explaining your IT infrastructure, addressing system architecture plans, applications to be used or to assist your business to operate in Saudi Arabia, your systems that you're going to use in order to operate your business. Where are your data centers, the operators of the data centers, servers, networks, processes, and if applicable, each of its agents. For instance, if you're going to hire more than one agent to help you operate your business, so the same concept applies to each of your agents when it comes to IT infrastructure. Now let's move to the requirements. Are there any questions? Please.
Yes, sorry. So if we go back to the org chart, now the org chart plan, does this have to be the nominated people who is gonna fit, let's say, the position, or just, you know, the position itself?
You're talking about the fit and proper?
No, the organization charts, the org chart.
Yeah, here. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is when we submit to SAMA, do we have to put the nominated people who's going to fill the positions, or
yes,
just the position?
Yes. The name and title.
So the name and title of the people, but usually in establishing company, let's say in our situation or other situations, some positions are not yet let's say introduced into the company, and they are planned further down the line. So getting these people beforehand in the payroll and onboarding the company prior to getting the license, it's a bit of a risk for the company itself.
Yeah, totally understood. From our experience, it is okay in the pre-approval stage to mention that in our organizational chart, there is, for instance, risk management officer or law compliance officer, for instance. And the name you can mention to be designated or to be nominated on a later stage. However, that you should mention that you have such title under whose supervision.
Sure, makes
Yeah.
sense. Thank you, Rami.
Okay. But of course, needless to mention that right prior to obtaining your license, all those offices must be filled. Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will be a problem. Yeah. Okay, let's go back. Now let's move to PI license requirements. Is there anyone here has forgotten about what PI means? It's a payment service provider as a type of payment institution. Now, as for the requirements, I have made it, or I have presented as a sort of a table. Here you can find the subject, micro PI, major PI. As for the eligible entity, for micro PI, it's allowed to be either a joint stock company or a limited liability company. However, for major PI, it must be a joint stock company. Okay. As for services cross borders, you are not allowed to operate or to process payments outside of Saudi Arabia. As for average monthly payment transactions, it's 10 million for the micro PI. You can tell it's the limit up to 10 million per month. However, for major PI, there is no limit. You can process how much ever money you have. As for issuing electronic money, of course, you are not allowed either for micro or major PI. As for the initial capital requirements, it's 1 million for the micro PI and 3 million for the major PI. Furthermore, you should pay up a reserve capital additional. As I mentioned yesterday, if you remember, you can consider it as a warranty against your operations in Saudi Arabia. You should keep this money under the handled by SAMA. You should never liquidate such reserve money in the amount of 1 million Saudi riyals for micro PI and 3 million for the major PI, or 1% of your major PI's average of money processed in 1 month, whichever is higher. For instance, if the last year you have processed or you have transferred around, let's say 50 million, no, it will be much higher. Yeah, let's say 500 million, 500 million. So 1% out of which shall be 5 million. So you should keep as a reserve capital a 5 million Saudi riyals. Is this one clear?
I have a question about that. Does it mean the fees, or does it mean the whole money that got in and out? So is it the transaction volume, or is it the cut of the profit of the PI only?
No, this is a reserve capital.
Yeah, I mean the 1%. What I mean is the 1% of the average value of the monthly transaction. So all of the monthly transaction, regardless of what is cost and what has been transferred to the merchant, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The major or the average major value processed within your platform for 1 month as an average, of course, divided by 12 months over 1 year or over a given year. Okay. So either 3 million Saudi riyals or 1%, whichever is higher. This amount should be kept under the supervision of SAMA as a reserve capital. This, you could consider it as a warranty against any risks that might come up within your operation in Saudi Arabia.
So Rami, in this example, if you put 3 million as the base, then that means that as long as your monthly transactions are not over 300 million reals, then your 3 million reals will suffice. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
All right, cool.
Yeah, that's why oh, please.
No, please proceed.
Okay, that's why there is an obligation stipulated by SAMA that each PSP should deliver or hand over an updated financial statement or your financial position on an annual basis, which of course should reflect your monthly average on an annual basis. So for example, in a given year, you have processed 250 million Saudi riyals. So of course, the 1% is still below the 3 million. So you're safe. On another given year, you have processed, let's say 600 million, 800 million. So on that given year, you should raise your reserve capital from 3 million to, let's say, 6 million, 8 million, or whatever. Clear?
Yeah, clear. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, what's meant by electronic money, issuing electronic money?
The easier word is e-wallet.
I see.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
But you know, the regulator here in Saudi Arabia doesn't like the word e-wallet. So you know why?
Why?
Between you off the record. Because electronic money actually per se or physically it does not exist. So you just pay one banknote of let's say 1 Saudi riyal. You just convert it into an electronic virtual currency of 1 riyal. So it is equivalent to electronic money. But in the street language, it is just e-wallet. Yeah, you can say e-wallet.
Because when I read it, the first thing that popped in my head is like cryptocurrency. I was like, what? Yeah. Okay.
Rami, sorry, one more question on the capital requirements. So is the difference between the initial capital and the reserve capital, my understanding from reading the PSP regs, is that the 3 million we given a what do you call it, irrevocable guarantee to SAMA, does it also mean that we have to keep 3 million reals in the bank account plus 3 million reals to SAMA, making it 6, or is it just 3 million?
6.
6. Okay, so you need double what? Okay,
yes.
Cool. All right.
Yes. Of course, this applies only to major, but if we are talking about the micro, so it will be 1 + 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rami, just on the same notes, because my understanding from the regulation that the initial capital can be used by the company to establish the company itself, the presence, either in setting up the offices, you know, the initial let's say requirement of setting up the company, and it should reflect on the So I can spend the first, let's say, if we're talking about the major BI, I can spend the first 3 million in setting up the company, okay, as long as I can reflect it in our books. But on addition of that 300 that has been spent, I have to have a bank guarantee in the name of SAMA for the 3 million.
Exactly.
So it's not
these 3 million or 1 million in case of the micro PI. This is a warranty, undisposable, undisposable.
Sure. So it's just the reserve capital that needs to be held, but the initial capital requirement can be spent in establishing the company.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, the same concept applies if it's reflected on your CR, for instance. So the CR will mention the capital of the company, of the corporate itself. So in case of you're applying for a micro PI, so if your CR reflects that your initial capital is 1 million, so you're good to go. However, this does not excuse you or does not exempt you from applying reserve capital or warranty against 1 million, additional 1 million Saudi riyals.
But I don't need to hold, if we're talking about, let's say, the micro, I don't need to hold, let's say, 2 million Saudi riyals in the bank in the name of Sam. Only 1 million.
Yes.
The other million, I can spend it on establishing the company as long as I can demonstrate this to Sam.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Common lines, please.
If you allow me just to have one minor question about the same topic. So is this being checked on annual basis? So annually 1 million should be there, or is it, for example, if you have 5 years, does it become 5 millions, or it's just the rechecking of having the 3 millions on annual basis without having it maximized? Is it incremental by year? Maybe that is the question in easier form.
Yeah. As for micro PI, no, it is 1 million forever, as long as you have a micro PI license. So you should keep a reserve capital of 1 million. Okay. As for the major PI, it will be annually reviewed by SAMA. Why annually? Because you will need to submit a financial situation or the financial position of your company on an annual basis, where you will need to keep a reserve capital of 1% of the major PI's average value of your monthly transactions. And then SAMA will decide which is higher. Is it the 3 million or the 1% is higher, regardless of the license period. Okay. Clear?
Clear, thank you. Yeah.
Clear, okay. Of course, needless to mention that the common licensing requirements applies to both of PIs. As for license fees, it is 20,000 riyals for micro PI, 50,000 for major PI, and the same amounts for the renewal fees. Now let's move to EMI license requirements. Same table with different info. As for eligible entities, now it is joint stock companies for both. There is no option now for LLC, okay? Just for both. Average monthly payment transactions, still 10 million for the micro in here with no limit, also for EMIs. Oh, sorry, now this one should be checked, right. My bad. Sorry, I forgot to change it. Issuing electronic money, check for both. Okay. Clear? I just want I want nobody to get confused. Here, this one should be correct, not wrong. Okay. Both licenses are allowed to issue electronic money. Initial capital 2 million for micro EMI and 10 million for major EMI. Reserve capital, again, 2 plus 2. Reserve capital, 2 million here. Major EMI, 10 million or 2% of your monthly average. Common licensing applies to both licenses. And again, license fees and renewal fees, the same, 20,000 and 50,000 for renewal. Is it clear? Good to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rami, on the servicing the cross-border, my understanding is that we, as the EMI, you cannot transfer the money yourself. But if you were working with a bank or a licensed a financial institution in Saudi Arabia that does cross-border remittances, and you had an agreement with them, would that would be considered as a payment initiation? So would that be covered under the EMI, that if we use, say, like how STC Pay uses Western Union, for example? So it's not STC that's transferring the money, it's Western Union. So is that okay for us to do cross-border if we are working with a licensed company?
Yeah, I got you. It is allowed if you are just an interface.
Okay.
Yeah, but if it's all standalone PSP, no, you're not allowed.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, very important question: how to prove, of course, to SAMA that you have met all the requirements? There are multiple options. You can submit capital instruments that prove that you have met all requirements, bank guarantees, reserved profits, and other reserves. For instance, other reserves like if it's a real estate asset or whatsoever, but of course it must be evaluated by an approved or an official or an accepted evaluator or appraiser, Saudi appraiser. Also, PSPs need to prove their fulfillment of the requirements on an annual basis. Of course, this applies to this part essentially. That's why it's so important. Other than this, you have 4 options to adopt on your course or on your interaction with SAMA. Now let's move in detail to risk management. When it comes to risk management, I can present it on 2 levels or on 2 fields. When it comes to your day-to-day business, you need to have a crystal clear terms and conditions. You have to have a schedule that explain your transaction fees, how it is deducted, why, what about your refund policy, your reverse policy, so on and so forth. Also, you have to have a policy explaining your customer complaint processing. And when it comes to customer complaint processing, you need to mention that all complaints must be addressed within a period not exceeding 7 days. And you have sort of admit that your customer, if he or she was not satisfied with your decision against or decision on their complaint, they are allowed to refer to SAMA or make a renvoi, recourse to SAMA with their complaint. You need to admit this. This is when it comes to your day-to-day risk management. The other level or the other field which addresses or which comes with your operations in general, regardless of your day-to-day business. For instance, your operational risks when it comes to your third-party service providers, your other utilities, internet, so on and so forth. Also fraud risks, AML, which is anti-money laundering and terrorism financing risks, cybersecurity risks, reputational risks, credit risks, when it comes, of course, for the reserve capital, third-party risks, if you have any third-party service providers involved within the operation of the platform, market risks, if we are talking about any pandemic, any severe change of the currency value. Also, when we're talking about foreign currency change risks, also business continuity risks, especially when we're talking about any operational failure with the company, or the PSP. Also, if you have come or faced any sort of technical issue that prevented the PSP from delivering their expected services. Also, when it comes to data protection and confidentiality risks, by the way, you should have a dedicated policy for your users' data protection and confidentiality, or what's so-called user data management policy. Last but not least, other commercial or financial risks. And of course, this addresses that part. Let me go back to it. Oh, I stopped my screen. No, I don't want to stop my whole share screen. When it comes to this part, yeah, here. The risk management that complies with this, yani, the risk management, what if you were, or if you have found that your PSP is unable to comply or to match your financial plan, what will you do? What is the nature, scale, gravity, or reasons behind your failure to match your financial plan? That's why when it comes to risk management, you should have a clear risk management policy when it comes to other commercial or financial risks. Am I clear?
Clear. But Rami, just a question on transaction fees. So while submitting the application to SAMA, we should submit the proposed fees also, correct?
Sorry, would you please repeat your question?
So while once we submit the application to SAMA, it should include the proposed fees that, let's say, the company would impose on the customer. Now,
of course,
these fees are, let's say, an estimate that we estimate that how much we're going to charge in the market. But again, can we submit again to SAMA if we have any changes? Would this have any impact?
Yeah, of course. You are allowed to. Yeah. So let's now move to corporate governance. Corporate governance addresses, I have chosen these 6 aspects. When it comes to organizational structure chart, of course, you need to have a clear structure chart that explains each involved office that affects or impacts your day-to-day operations, starting from the so-called CEO or founding partners, all the way down to IT developers, back-end, so on and so forth. Every single person or every single personnel who's involved in the day-to-day operations. When it comes to controls on conflicts of interest, of course, I have a dedicated chapter for conflicts of interest, but this should be included as a standalone policy, even if you're going to include it within your terms and conditions, but you have to have a sort of a chapter that explains your conflict of interest, and must be, of course, submitted to SAMA for their review and approval. Also, you have to have a integrity and transparency policy. Is there any kind of double prices, different layers of pricing for multiple users? Everything must be crystal clear and explained to SAMA. Also, you have to have a compliance, law compliance officer and law compliance policy. Maintaining confidentiality of information, that's what so-called a user data management policy. or confidentiality or privacy policy. Also, fairness of transactions, especially when it comes to AML or TF, anti-money laundering and financing terrorism. Now let's
all roles. I'm sorry. All roles should be full-time.
Sorry, again.
All roles should be full-time in the organizational structure.
No, it's not a requirement to be full-time.
I see. About the confidentiality of information, that's information security. Do we have to take a license from the security authority here?
Yes, and it depends on. It depends. Also, SAMA may require from time to time to have a certain tier or a certain level of cybersecurity. In such case, you will have to run the IT tests. IT tests or cyber security tests under the supervision or under the monitoring of a certain official personnel assigned or nominated by SAMA just to make sure that you have accomplished or reached a certain level.
Okay.
Clear?
Clear, thank you.
Perfect, you're welcome. Now, here, so far, we are done with the PSP. Are we good to go with the currency exchange?
Rami, I do, yes, I wanted to just ask you, so my understanding with the any regulator, when you apply, there's an initial application process, after which you get your in-principle approval, then they set the conditions that you need to complete in order to get the full license. So everything that you've shown us here today, is this the minimum required to get the in-principle approval? Or like some of these things before the in-principle approval may be quite difficult to do. So I'm just wondering that, does SAMA expect to see all of this on the initial application, or will they say, okay, you know, you've done the minimum, now we want you to do X, Y, and Z to fulfill the conditions?
Yeah, gotcha. No, this is the full, complete answers or submissions for the complete license. However,
okay.
For the what's so-called pre-approval license or in-principle license, they will go with, I just need to go to the slides without, yeah, I found it, yeah. Here.
Yeah.
You are good to go with the principal license, or the basic requirements for the principal license are these 10 basic requirements. Complete application form, annual financial statements, basic risk management policies, fit and proper forms, of course, for each founding partner, clear business plan, organizational chart, shareholders structure, and consumer protection measures, and your IT infrastructure. Okay. And of course you need to choose which license you're applying for, and to prove that you are at least on the path of fulfilling its special requirements. Am I clear?
Yes, no, that's perfectly clear. So these 10 items would be in the initial application, and then what you showed afterwards, all the detailed policies we would do after the in-principle license is issued.
Yes.
Okay, and then the capital requirements, do those need to be done at the initial application stage or during the full application stage?
As for the capital requirements, let's say, it seems that my PC is quite slow. Sorry about this. Let's go to here. Yeah. When it comes to the initial capital requirements or the reserve capital requirement, first of all, you need to have a company, of course, under which you are applying for the license. You may prove that you may submit what proves that you have the initial capital requirements. Otherwise, you should admit or grant SAMA a bank guarantee reflects the basic requirement. Yani no need to have all of them, all of the capital requirements deposited in a given bank in cash. However, you might submit a bank guarantee against the nominated capital requirement.
Okay.
Am I clear?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rami, one last thing, because this is a major, I think, point for everybody. On the initial capital requirement, would it suffice to SAMA to show the, let's say, the initial capital requirement on the CR? Would this suffice to them?
Yes. So as for the initial capital, yes.
Yeah, but do I have to show the proof that this capital requirement has been consumed or being consumed to establish the company, or only the CR would suffice?
They may ask, it happened around twice when the company has started consuming or spending amounts of money. For instance, on development, application development, or web-based sort of IT stuff, I'm not that expert web. They have asked for justification why the amount is below the required. We advise the company to submit a bank statement explaining each amount was spent on exactly what matter. And then the SAMA accepted it, no problem. They accepted it. So the answer is yes, it's acceptable, but it is safer. Just to avoid their questions, because frankly speaking, it might take some time. If you are happy with not wasting, but waiting for additional 15 to 21 days, okay, you can start spending.
So another question on that, so can I demonstrate to SAMA the spend of the initial capital requirement from, let's say, because we have the group companies in Abu Dhabi. So can we show the financial statements from that company that we consumed, let's say, $3 million in development as an initial capital requirement? Or does it have to be in Saudi?
No, it has to be in Saudi.
Okay.
Yeah, this is way safer, because SAMA might not be convinced that such amounts were really spent in Saudi Arabia or regarding Saudi Arabia, your startup business.
No, but let's say that I'm developing the app outside. So I developed the app outside Saudi, developed our systems, our IT, but the payments are being done from the global holding company for this.
Yeah, I gotcha. But when it comes to capital requirement for a company, or in other words, when it comes to the initial capital requirement, the initial capital that's reflected on your CR, it must be there, 1 million, or let's say 750,000 plus a bank guarantee of the remaining quarter. And then when they ask you about the initial capital, you will say, okay, it's 0 actually, because the Abu Dhabi branch has spent them all.
No, but this is it. I can demonstrate that the Abu Dhabi global company has spent this money to do the IT development infrastructure, you know, the office setup in Saudi, that we consumed, let's say, 500,000 from the million on this setup. Would this suffice to SAMA that if I brought the financial statements and, you know, invoices of this being built, would this suffice to cover the initial capital requirement?
Basically, it is acceptable in Saudi Arabia, but
Okay.
it's not guaranteed that they may cope with it or adopt it if it happened outside of Saudi Arabia, because it's out of their jurisdiction, out of their monitoring capabilities.
Sure.
It's safer to keep everything in here in Saudi Arabia. This is way safer because I'm not sure how they will live with it. I hope you got my point.
Yeah, I got your point. Thank you, Rami.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, any further questions before moving to currency exchange? Okay, we're good to go. Now let's move to currency exchange business in Saudi Arabia. I need to move this so that I can read. Yeah. Okay. Let's start with the license requirements. Of course, the legal entity or the legal form of a money changer / currency exchange business in Saudi Arabia shall be one of the following, or the company type: either a joint stock company, limited liability company, partnership, sole proprietorship, or foreign company branch licensed to conduct money changing business in Saudi Arabia. However, it's very important to note that each founding member must meet the fit and proper requirements specified by SAMA and any other conditions related to the proposed legal form of the money changer. How to meet such fit and proper requirements? Of course, by following or fulfilling the fit and proper form given by SAMA. Also, you need to provide comprehensive and detailed information and data regarding your business. Now, as for the supporting documents of the license application, here I have divided the supported documents into 3 parts. Number 1, when it comes to feasibility, you need to submit a business plan, administrative or organizational structure, and your future plan or business plan. Also, the second part is an irrevocable bank guarantee for an amount equivalent to the capital issued in favor of SAMA. And of course, I'm going to address the initial capital in detail on the next slide. Part 3 is the corporate documentations. Of course, here I'm talking about your CR, articles of incorporation, articles of association, and the proposed ownership structure. Now, let's move to the license fees. As for currency exchange business, the license fees is so easy. Now it's based on the license type. You have the paid up capital, issuing fees, and renewal fees. There are 3 types of a currency exchange license, 3 types. Type number 1 purchasing, selling, and trading of foreign currencies inside KSA. And of course, the type 1, but plus import and export of currencies, just to import currencies from outside of Saudi Arabia, and then conduct the same 1 plus 2 plus conduct money transfers activity inside or outside of the KSA. For instance, of the record, like Western Union. Okay. So for type 1, the paid up capital is 2 million. The issuing fees is 20,000. Renewal fees is 5,000. For type 2, the paid up capital is 7 million. The issuing fees are 35,000 and renewal fees are 10,000. For type 3, the paid up capital is 10 million. The issuing fees is 35,000. However, the renewal fees is 40,000 Saudi riyals. Is everything clear? Clear?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good to go. Now, let's go to, are there any prohibited activities for a currency exchange business in Saudi Arabia? The answer is yes. There are 5 basic prohibited activities. Activity number 1, practicing any other commercial business other than the business or the activity approved by SAMA. Activity number 2, opening any sort of accounts, either current, investment, or savings for its customers or employees. So someone might ask, okay, how may I handle my payroll then if I'm not allowed to open a bank account? Of course, you are allowed to open a bank account when it comes to your HR services, yani HR handling operations. You're allowed to open a bank account, but you are not allowed to open a bank account as a service for your customers, because you are not a bank. You are just a currency exchange commercial service. Is this one clear? Because there are a lot of people that might get confused when with this part. Is this one clear?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Activity number 3, as a prohibited activity, issuing letters of guarantees or opening letters of credit or collaterals in any form inside or outside the KSA. Also, as I have mentioned earlier, when it comes like this part, you are allowed to, of course, issue to open or to seek a letter of credit as a business from any bank existing in Saudi Arabia, but the currency exchange business is not allowed itself to issue a letter of guarantee from itself, from inside out. But you are allowed as a business to seek a letter of credit or a letter of guarantee from any given bank in Saudi Arabia. Also, currency exchange businesses are not allowed to rent any safe deposit lockers. Last but not least, they are not allowed to have an overdraft in its accounts abroad under any circumstances except for cases resulting from the difference in due payment. Currency import and export. This is when it comes to type 3. The money changer licensed to engage in the activity of currency import and export shall develop regulatory policies and procedures at a minimum the following. Number 1, notifying customs at the Saudi borders that there are a given amount of money are about to be imported or exported. Also, maintain documents of currency imported or exported. That because especially in SAMA may at any given time request the disclosure of such records demonstrating currencies imported or exported. Are there any questions before proceeding?
Yeah, just to be clear,
please.
Does international online payments count as importing money or money exchange?
No. You are talking about the EMI, correct? PSP, Payment Service Provider. No, Payment Service Provider are not deemed to be a currency exchange.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a standalone business.
I see. Thanks.
Yeah. Procedure number three, sorry. To prepare funds for their transfer properly. Point number 4, to comply with all instructions issued by SAMA regarding currency import or export, including not dealing with any entities specified by SAMA. So for instance, SAMA may at any given time publish a list of entities that currency exchange businesses are not allowed to deal or interact with. In such case, the currency exchange businesses should not at all interact with those entities. Now, when it comes to customer protection requirements, you should have a policy or a post that clearly mentions the clear information stating customer rights that must be put for the public or in a clear or accessible place within the business headquarters or branch or other offices, of course. Also, you must, or currency exchange offices must deliver receipts for all transactions executed to their customers, and a copy thereof shall be delivered. You should print out 2 receipts, one for your own records and another one for your customer. Also, there must be a sort of a board, either electronic or handwritten or whatsoever, that clearly reflects the current or the latest currency exchange rates to be displayed within the head office location or all other branches for the customers to be able to read or accessible by all customers. Also, specific channels must be made available for receiving customer complaints. The same concept applies, that all complaints or all customer complaints must be handled or settled within one week period. Otherwise, the customer is allowed to approach or recourse to SAMA for settling or resolving their complaint. Last but not least, protection measures of customer information must be developed, and of course it must be displayed so clearly within the head office and branches. Now let's move to conflict of interest. Before leaving currency exchange, are there any questions relating currency exchange business in Saudi Arabia? We're good to go?
I'm good.
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay. Now let's go in detail to conflict of interest. Conflict of interest, of course, is one big major concern of corporate governance. What is what is a conflict of interest policy? It clearly should reflect that the board, of course, I'm talking about the board of directors or the biggest influencers of a given company, that shall develop an explicit and written policy to deal with the actual and potential conflict of interest situation that may affect the performance of the board members, the executive management, or any other employees, influensive employees of the company when dealing with the company or other stakeholders. Such policy shall at least include the following: how to avoid situations that may lead to the conflict between interests of the board, substantial shareholders, senior executives, and other employees on the one hand, and the interests of the company and stakeholders on the other hand. How to handle interests of the company in accordance with the provisions of the company's law and its implementing regulations. Therefore, you have to have a sort of, you have to have a law compliance officer that should be at all times updated with the company's law, implementing regulations, and also the corporate governance regulations passed or issued by CMA. Then such policy shall provide examples, clear examples of expected or predicted conflicts of interest situations that are relevant to your specific nature of your company's activities. That's why, because it may differ from a company to another. A given company might have might have scenarios of conflict of interest that are so different from another company's activity. Such policy also shall set out clear procedures for disclosing conflicts of interest in the activities that may lead to such conflicts and obtaining authorization or the requisite approval. Okay. For instance, what are the steps that need to be followed by the parties or members involved in a conflict of interest scenario? How to disclose or expose that you are involved, and the steps how to obtain an authorization or approval to proceed with your business, even though there is a conflict of interest. Is this part clear? I'll consider this as a yes. Okay. Also, the policy should set out a clear obligation to constantly disclose situations that may lead to conflict of interests or upon the occurrence of such conflicts. Also, there must be an obligation that abstain from voting, that abstain the involved parties from voting or taking part in decision making when there are any sort of involvement in a conflict of interest scenario. Also, there must be a setting out clear procedures when the company contracts, enters into a contract or enters into a transaction with a related party. Also, there must be a notification process to the authority and the public without any delay once a contract or a transaction, if it equals to or exceeds 1% of the company's total revenues according to the last annual audited financial statements. So in any given year, if there is a transaction or a contract that has the value of 1% of the company's total revenue, there must be a notification that is passed to the authority and the public. Last but not least, there must be a stipulation of procedures to be taken by the board when discovering that such policy has been violated. This has been almost everything. I'll be pleased to have your questions regarding any of our subjects for today. And also your feedback.
Thank you, Rami. It was very insightful. Mashallah, you covered a lot of aspects and you clarified a lot of ambiguity that we had in regards of the licensing. From my part, I don't have any questions. Maybe the rest of the team might have a.
All good, Rami. Thank you very much for the detailed presentation. It's cleared up a lot of, like Hassan said, cleared up a lot of gaps we had in our knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Rami, for all of your time. I just have one last question just to make sure upon what Nawaf asked. So one of the things that we seek to provide in our business is offering the checkout at non-KSR, non-SAR currencies, such as US dollar, euros, and so on. Does that need any further currency exchange check-ins, or AMI covers that part of it?
Okay, so your core business is a payment service provider, correct?
Yes.
So you don't need to obtain any currency exchange license unless you deliver such service as a core business.
Okay.
Other than this, it shall be such currency change shall be made automatically by the bank.
Okay,
but
okay, gotcha.
You are not delivering the currency exchange service as a core business. That's why you do not need.
Very clear. Thank you so much for your time and effort.
You're welcome. So any further questions, concerns, inquiries, comments?
I'm good. Thank you for your efforts. It was very thorough. Thank you.
You're always welcome. Okay, so I have been so pleased to have you guys with me today, and of course with the Knowledge Pioneers. I'm sure Miss Lojain will share with you the schedules of our one-on-one discussions and preparations for your future plans, inshallah. Other than this, thank you. Thank you. And of course, needless to mention that these are contact details. And also this is for ease of access, this is an active QR code. At any given time, please do not hesitate to approach us for any further information or clarification. Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rami, for your knowledge and for the session. Inshallah, all the startups will be matched to the legal counselor this week, and you can begin your sessions, your one-on-one sessions with the lawyers next week, bi'idhnillah. So good luck and thank you, and see you guys tomorrow with our fun sessions, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
guys.
Inshallah. By the way, Mr. Jan, should I now stop recording myself,
Yes,
or you
yes,
will
of
handle
course.
it?
No, you do it from your end.